top 10. It's always changing this time of year, and we're getting a look at things. Let's start with the guy who's bumping up your list a little bit, and that's Pavel Buchnevich. What's the latest on the Blues' motivation to move this winger?
Well, it's interesting because they are in a spot where hold on a second. I'm just finishing off the details here on this Vladimir Tarasenko trade. So it's I just tweeted out the details, and it is a Vladimir Tarasenko going to the Panthers. The Sens are retaining half. It's a 2025 third round pick and a 2024 conditional fourth round pick. And in that case, that fourth round pick can become a third round pick if the Florida Panthers win a Stanley Cup. So I mumbled my way through that, but there is essentially where we're standing with Tarasenko. That's the return. And as mentioned, a couple sort of mid-round picks, so to speak. I don't think the Sens had very much leverage here when it came to Tarasenko and the place that he wanted to go. That's what the return tells me.
All right. Interesting enough. Back to trade targets and Buchnevich. Do you have an update on him?
So with Buchnevich, I think what's really interesting is the St. Louis Blues have told teams that they're willing to get creative. Now, what exactly does that mean? I'm told that the Blues have said if the return is right, that they are willing to retain half on Buchnevich, which to me is a really juicy tidbit because he's one of the guys on the board that is not a rental, has one more year left on his deal. And if teams are balking and think that the prices are expensive for rentals, well, in this case, moving forward with Buchnevich, not $5.8 million next season, just $2.9 million, which to me, a point per game player, I thought at 5.8, even a high return made sense for the player that Buchnevich has been. To get 2 runs at him at a really reasonable rate on your cap, I could see that being certainly worth the haul. So no guarantee, as I've said many times, that Buchnevich gets traded, but the fact that the Blues are in this spot where they're willing to mix it up a bit and juice the return by retaining half, man, that all of a sudden becomes a really fascinating target.
And as they go through this little retooling period, don't call it a rebuild or whatever, to sit there and potentially add the assets you could if you were to keep half of Buchnevich, that could really jumpstart things for Doug Armstrong and the Blues.
I was going to say, consider that the Blues went to the podium last year and made 3 first-round picks. They've got some stuff in their arsenal already. If you're able to add 3 additional, so the ask for Buchnevich before was 2 first-round picks. So essentially a first-round pick plus a first-round pick equivalent, meaning a recent first-round pick. If you're going to add in 1 more top-level premium asset and get a team to retain half, that's 3 pieces coming back on top of the 3 that you just drafted last year, on top of Jake Neighbors having a 20-goal season, on top of Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas being 24, 25 years old. You can really start to see the pieces come together in St. Louis again for what could be another, 6 to 8, 10 years sustained period of time where you can compete.
Mm-hmm. Just quickly on the number 1 target on your trade targets list, that would be Penguins forward Jake Guentzel. The chat is absolutely buzzing with Guentzel talk. We got Rangers fans in there asking about him. We got Canucks fans in there asking about him. Oilers fans asking about him. Frank, everybody wants to know what's the latest on Guentzel.
So there's been a lot of different reporting out there in the last 24 hours when it comes to Jake Guentzel. I don't know what's right. I don't know what's wrong. But when it comes to what happens next, there's been some talk. The Penguins want to wrap this up in the next 24 hours. My understanding is the Penguins have had a tougher time drumming up a robust market for Jake Guentzel than some might realize. And that part, again, subject to debate. You never know what the interest is like. And ultimately we'll see at the end of the day when it comes to what the return ends up being. But the Penguins are no doubt asking a lot for, as we've just talked about, a player who is very likely to be a pure rental, meaning Jake Guentzel probably going to market in the summer. Unlikely, people think, to re-sign with whatever team he's traded to. And in that case, you see a lot of teams sort of take a step back and say, well, should we do that or should we turn to something else on the board? He's been connected to Vancouver. I think he's a real long shot for Edmonton. I don't think they've moved on, but I think he's further down the list for Edmonton on what they'd want to acquire. I do think the New York Rangers have closely kept tabs on the process. Some other teams sort of in that competitive window mode, like I think you could cross off a team like the Colorado Avalanche. They've obviously placed a premium on a center, but I don't think they have any interest in a rental winger. So I do think that in some ways, Pittsburgh is in a fascinating spot for what should be the premier rental forward available, that it just kind of quite, at least to my knowledge, hasn't been there. Again, we'll see what the proof is in the pudding.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.